Hello, it's Dr. Christine Arsenault, PharmD, Functional Medicine Certified Health Coach, going live from StreamYard today. It's my first time trying this, so hopefully this works on all my platforms. And today's topic is why your diagnosis doesn't matter, why focusing on it can sometimes not be helpful for you, and what you should focus on instead. So my first reason, so there's four main reasons why focusing on your diagnosis can be useless or even detrimental. The number one thing is I find that people get too focused on the physical when they are obsessed about figuring out their diagnosis and what exactly is causing it. And I understand being confused and wanting answers, but when you're so focused on the physical, you forget that it takes a mind, body, soul approach to heal. It's not just that physical body that you have to heal, but you have to look at your whole life. I would add mind, body, soul, and accountability, because we live in a crazy world where people are not healthy. Our modern life is just not a healthy environment. And so in order to be at a level of health unlike everybody else, you have to live your life different than everybody else. And that takes some support and accountability to be able to do that and to feel supported and not want to give up. So that's number one, is you're too focused on the physical if you are really concerned about your diagnosis. Number two is your diagnosis does not matter if you focus on resilience. So if you're focused on making your body as healthy as possible, then it's not going to be an environment where disease wants to live. So instead of focusing on the disease, focus on building your body up. And this is especially true for Lyme disease and infectious diseases, people who have multiple co-infections, mold, autoimmune issues. If you can just make your body as resilient as possible, make it so that organisms, pathogenic organisms that are causing you harm, don't want to live in your body. And this goes all the way back to Pasteur's germ theory. So we all know, like, oh, you have a bacteria, you want to kill it. But there's also the terrain theory, which was actually Béchamp, which was the rival of Pasteur. Pasteur's theory won out because he had more money, more political connections. But Béchamp's theory isn't wrong, that the terrain is important, that we all have bacteria. We have more bacterial cells than human cells. So we're made up of more of these other organisms than we are of ourself. And so it's really this symbiosis of being in nature and having everything be in balance. And there's not just one theory that's right or wrong. We live in a multidimensional universe. There's more than one truth ongoing simultaneously at the same time. So our terrain is very important. We want to make our terrain as healthy as possible so that pathogenic organisms do not want to live there. We want to focus on building up our immune system so that it's in balance, so that it's doing what it's supposed to do. We have this incredible innate ability to heal ourselves, and we just have to make sure that we're balanced so that that can happen. We want to bring down inflammation. So pain, fatigue, brain fog, all of these are signs of inflammation. And not just that, but cancer, heart disease, our whole modern day world is inflamed. So if we can bring down that inflammation, mycotoxins and mold love feeding on inflammation. Lyme loves inflammation. So if we can focus on bringing the inflammation down, we're going to make it a lot less likely that those other organisms can survive and thrive in our system. So instead of focusing on just the bug, focus on the terrain. And, I get that it can be helpful to know which infections you're dealing with. So, what herbs or antibiotics you can use to target those. But if you focus on the terrain and that resilience, then it's just really not as important, because you're going to have a better chance of clearing the infection no matter what it is. You don't have to obsess about doing all the testing. It's not always necessary if you're really focused on that terrain and bringing down inflammation and supporting your immune system. So number three, why not to focus on your diagnosis, is it becomes your identity when you get labeled. If you label yourself as somebody that has this diagnosis, that's your new identity. And now you have to become somebody new, overcome that identity in order to heal. It really affects your psyche, your mindset. when you tell yourself that you are a person who has this disease, when that becomes your label, something that you are really tied in with. When you get really intertwined with that, it makes healing even more complicated. So you have to be really careful about the words that you use when you're healing. And then lastly, number 4 is a lot of times when you get a diagnosis, you just focus on treating that one diagnosis instead of looking at the root causes. And if you go to Western medicine practitioners, typically they will give you pharmaceuticals that just mask the symptoms, they don't get to the root. So if you're focusing on looking at the root, the diagnosis itself doesn't really matter, because the diagnosis is really just a symptom of the things that have gone wrong at the root level. And this can be past traumas, it can be toxins in our environment, it can be nutrient depletions, or just not eating a diet that's serving you. So when you really look at the root and the whole comprehensive picture, the diagnosis itself becomes less important, and you can heal no matter what the diagnosis is. And so just some tips. How do we get to the root? How do we move forward? Well, there's some supplements that work on a cellular level that can really help with cell communication and overcoming some of the root issues. So if you're interested in those, you can send me a message. Hypnotherapy is something that I love using, and it really gets into the subconscious mind, where we have blocks that can be caused by past traumas, things that have happened in our life. Our subconscious mind records everything that happens to us. So if we can get in and remove those subconscious blocks, those root causes of things that are keeping us stuck, that can really shift our symptoms. And then just our whole lifestyle, stress management, emotions and thoughts and things like that affect inflammation in our body. So we really have to create a life that is healthy and focus on the lifestyle changes. Sorry, I've got something in my throat that are going to make the biggest impact. So when we focus on creating a life that's healthy, we can get a lot further. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you.